Chapter 1. The story begins in the demonic realm, where a massive castle looms over the dark land. A group of brave warriors, led by the legendary swordsman Vermuth, ventures inside to eliminate the Demon Kings. They have already defeated 3 out of the 5 rulers of this grim domain. Only 2 remain. A horde of demons stands in their way, but Vermuth effortlessly carves a path forward with a single swing of his sword. His power is awe-inspiring, leaving even his comrades in admiration of his skill. Behind Vermuth walks a female mage, confidently proclaiming that she can finally unleash her magic. Raising her hands, she summons the elements from thin air, obliterating the demons in an instant. This is the wise Senna, one of the greatest sorceresses of her time. A priestess attempts to bless her allies, granting them divine protection. At that moment, a demon attacks her, but she is far from defenseless. This is the holy Anise, whose sacred abilities can repel any evil. The strongest of the group, a mighty warrior, swings his massive battle axe, cleaving through enemies with ease. A single strike is enough to tear demons apart. Blood and mangled remains rain down on him, yet he remains unfazed. This is the fearless Moron, a warrior of unmatched courage. The last member of the group, his body covered in scars, warns Vermuth not to rush ahead and instead begins cutting his own path through the demonic horde. His name is Reckless Hamel. He has always seen himself as Vermuth's rival, though no one else acknowledged this competition. Envying the legendary swordsman, he nevertheless fights alongside him. After clearing the battlefield, the group surveys their surroundings. Suddenly, Hamel notices that Vermuth is in danger. Without hesitation, he throws himself forward, taking the attack meant for his leader. The assailant is an incredibly powerful demon, and the strike proves fatal for Hamel. The demon prepares to attack Vermuth again, but this time, the swordsman is ready. He dodges and, with a swift motion, cuts the enemy in 2. The others rush to Hamel's side. Vermuth looks at his fallen comrade with sorrow, telling him he should not have died this way. Hamel, feeling his life slipping away, calls his death an honorable one. Until his last breath, his only regret is not being honest with his friends. Gathering his remaining strength, he reaches out to Vermuth and orders him to eliminate the Demon Kings. Vermuth grips his hand tightly and solemnly vows to complete the mission. Hamel, wearing a faint, wistful smile, bids farewell to his comrades. He asks Anise to pray for him, acknowledges Moron as the bravest warrior, and looking at Senna, confesses that he had always harbored feelings for her. At that moment, the scene abruptly shifts. It turns out this entire story is nothing more than a tale in a book, being read by a silver-haired boy. Annoyed, he stomps on the book, declaring that he never said he loved Senna, and that the whole thing is complete nonsense. As he continues reading, his frustration grows. Who could have written this as if it were some childish fairy tale? If the author weren't anonymous, he would personally point out all the inaccuracies. He picks up the book again and begins to wonder, why did everyone else have such grand titles? Great, wise, holy, fearless, while he was merely reckless. Could this have been written by someone he defeated 300 years ago? But perhaps, in a way, this all makes sense. His former comrades could never have imagined that he, Hamel, who had supposedly died in battle against the Demon Kings 3 centuries ago, had actually reincarnated. Not only had he returned, but he had been reborn into a new body, as the descendant of Vermuth. Now his name is Eugene Lionheart, and he is only 13 years old. Chapter 2. After his death, Vermuth left behind many descendants, as he had numerous concubines in addition to his first wife. Eugene finds this strange since, during his lifetime, Vermuth was never the kind to mindlessly chase after women. Had he changed his mind about it? Still, there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone has their needs, and Eugene understands. Only the children of the first wife are considered direct heirs. Even if the surname remains Lionheart, Eugene's family belongs to a collateral branch. Such children are forbidden from practicing magic or using real weapons until they undergo the bloodline succession ritual. For a 13-year-old boy, Eugene is incredibly physically developed, and he realizes that today is the last day he'll be using a wooden sword. The young man trains, his movements astonishingly fast. It doesn't take long before he slices a training dummy clean in half. Eugene's father watches with horror, noting that this is far from the first dummy his son has destroyed. He can't help but notice how well developed his son's muscles are, truly frightening, especially for a teenager. Eugene behaves nothing like a child, and his father even feels a bit afraid of him. There isn't a trace of childish innocence in his eyes. Even after his mother died in early childhood, he never once grieved. Displeased with the quality of the wooden weapon, Eugene calls the local blacksmith useless, claiming that selling such trash is practically a crime. His father reminds him about the bloodline ritual taking place tomorrow. Eugene considers the ritual a foolish Lionheart tradition held every 10 years. All children between the ages of 10 and 15 from both the main and collateral branches gather at the family estate to undergo trials that determine who is worthy of bearing the Lionheart name. However, the direct heirs have a massive advantage, as they are allowed to train in magic and real weapons from early childhood. Eugene's father looks at the broken dummy and thinks that his son is so talented, it's hard to believe they share blood. If only he had been born in the main family. But no. Perhaps it would have been better if he hadn't had such talent at all. Then he wouldn't have to confront the gap between his abilities and reality. Eugene notices the sadness in his father's eyes and asks what's wrong, but the man simply waves him off. Suddenly, his father grabs him by the shoulders and insists that he not compete with the children of the main branch. No matter how talented he is, those children have far more experience with swords and magic. Eugene smiles, reassuring him that he has no intention of competing, but deep down, he's lying. Defeating them will be too easy. He thinks about the ritual. 3 children from the main family and 6 from the collateral branches will take part. The main trio includes the son of Vermouth's first wife and twins from one of the concubines. This means the others are practically doomed to fail. Eugene raises his sword, and with a single strike, destroys yet another training dummy. He longs to find out just how strong Vermouth's direct descendants truly are. The next day, Eugene rides in a carriage to the ritual, deep in thought. In his past life as Hamel, he had considered himself a genius. Even as a child, he learned quickly and honed his skills. Yet Vermouth, while acknowledging his talent, always told him that if he tried harder, he could achieve even more. Hamel retorted that not everyone could be as gifted as Vermouth. The real problem was that the true genius wasn't Hamel, but his comrade, Vermouth. A master of both sword and magic known as the God of War, he had originally been a duke of the Kiel Empire but renounced his title to become a legendary warrior. The rest of their companions also achieved greatness. The wise Senna became the youngest magical master in the kingdom of Aroth. The holy Anise was recognized as a saint in the Eurus Empire, and her teachings were inscribed in sacred scriptures. The fearless Moron founded his own kingdom, unfortunately, naming it after himself. They had all reached incredible heights, so why was the Demon King still alive? Vermouth had sworn to destroy them all. Hamel had died in the demonic prison castle, and after his death, Vermouth had made some kind of deal with the Demon King. Thanks to that agreement, the war with the demons had ended, and peace had lasted for 300 years. Eugene is accompanied by Lord Gordon, who asks if he's nervous. If he loses his nerve now, he'll surely be defeated when facing the main family. Eugene thanks him for the advice, and Gordon notes that they are on Lionheart territory now, but shouldn't get out of the carriage yet. The main residence is still far off. The boy is amazed by Gordon's arrogance. given that he isn't even the true owner of these lands. He remarks that managing such a vast territory must be inconvenient, but Gordon explains that there are portals set up, making travel quite easy. Eugene wants to ask why he wasn't allowed to use them, but realizes the answer would be obvious. He just smiles and stays silent. Finally, they arrive at the Lionheart family's main estate, a grand mansion gleaming with gold, but Eugene is ready for the trials that await him. Chapter 3. Eugene and Lord Gordon head toward the main house of the Lionheart family. He isn't surprised by the lack of a formal welcome. Being from a side branch, he isn't considered a true relative here. The Lionheart family carries the name of the Great Vermouth, and only those who are his direct descendants have the right to wear the lion emblem on their chest. Eugene asks Gordon if any of his relatives have arrived yet and learns that he's the first. He's then directed to the guest house. There, Eugene is greeted by a young maid named Nina, who informs him that she'll be attending to him during his stay. She tells him that if he ever needs anything, he just has to ring the bell. Eugene quickly realizes that, despite being assigned a personal maid, Nina is completely inexperienced. When he asks her age, she replies that she's 16 and only recently finished her training. Immediately, Eugene understands that she was assigned to him on purpose, to put him in an awkward situation. He decides not to fall for the obvious setup, and instead asks when the other participants of the bloodline ritual will arrive. Nina tells him they should be arriving over the next 4 days. Eugene then asks to be taken to the training grounds. Meanwhile, 2 twin children from the main family, Cyan and Ciel, are talking about Eugene. They assume he comes from some backwater town and probably doesn't even know how to wield a sword. Cyan sneers, joking that Eugene probably trains with farming tools instead of real weapons. He also comments that the guy's carriage must stink and that if he breaks anything in the mansion, he'll have to pay for it. Ciel agrees, and they decide to go warn their dear relative. At the training grounds, Eugene is practicing with a spear, moving with incredible speed and precision. He reflects on how, in his past life as Hamel, he trained endlessly, but the body he has now far surpasses his previous one. Despite intense training, he doesn't get tired, and his wounds heal unnaturally fast. He can't help but admire the physical abilities that Vermouth's descendants have inherited. Nina watches his training in awe. She can't believe how fast he is, especially while wearing weighted gear on his arms. Just then, their session is interrupted as Cyan and Ciel walk up to the training grounds. Nina instantly recognizes them and tenses up. Cyan turns to Nina and demands to know what she's doing here. Without stopping his practice, Eugene casually replies that it's obvious, he's training. His indifferent attitude and bluntness irritate Cyan, but what really gets under his skin is when Eugene straight up calls him an idiot. Ciel eggs her brother on, reminding him that this so-called relative from a side branch just insulted a direct descendant of the main family. Cyan demands an apology, and Eugene immediately says, "Sorry," but his tone is so flat and insincere that it only makes Cyan angrier. He orders Eugene to bow and apologize properly. Eugene refuses, explaining that they're the same age, so there's no reason for him to bow. Instead, he suggests they consider each other as equals since they're both part of the Lionheart bloodline. This infuriates Cyan even more, who insists that there's a massive gap between them and that they could never be equals. Ciel reminds Cyan about the carriage and Cyan smirks, telling Eugene to go clean it, assuming it must stink thanks to his provincial origins. But Eugene simply looks at him and then turns to Nina, asking if she's his personal maid. When she hesitantly confirms, he orders her to clean the carriage instead. Nina freezes, unsure of what to do, while Cyan completely loses it. He demands that Eugene do it himself, furious that he just humiliated him. Feeling his pride on the line, Cyan declares that such disrespect can't go unpunished. He announces that they will settle this with a duel. Eugene just smiles. This is exactly what he wanted, a chance to prove that he's far stronger than any of Vermouth's so-called true descendants.